All right, it looks like we are up and live. And I have confirmed that. Going right on Facebook. Hello, Josh.
Hello, Rabbi Brian.
It is great to have you back.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be with you on this, what is it, the sixth night or seventh night?
I think it's now the seventh night.
Seventh night of Hanukkah.
Wow, flying by, huh?
It is.
Yeah. Have you had a good Hanukkah thus far?
I have. It's been different but unique in its own way.
Yeah. Yeah, filled with a little bit of light, I hope.
Absolutely, yeah. We've been working on a very interesting project this year over at Stephen Wise called Lit Hanukkah.
I saw that. You know, when I was at Stephen Wise, we didn't do that yet, so this is really cool.
Well, yeah, I don't think this would have happened in any normal year, but we had to get a little creative and figure out how to bring the Hanukkah joy this year.
Yeah.
So we created sort of this interactive multimedia musical film projection sort of spectacular thing that was really fun.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I noticed that
Multimedia.
on the Cats Pavilion, you had a huge. That's so cool. That's so cool. Josh, we're gonna rename you on here because it has my name. Now you're Josh Goldberg on Zoom.
Oh, thank you.
I think unless you want to be me, but I think you should be you.
I think we should all be ourselves.
I agree. I agree. Well, we're going to give it just another minute to get going. We have some people coming on. Mora Sandan. Hi, Mora. Please, if you're here, say hello. Josh, I don't know if you mind sharing with your peeps on Facebook, and maybe they'll sign on and watch too. That's
Absolutely.
fully up to you. Let me also give you co-host abilities here because you're exactly that. My co-host for the evening.
All right.
We'll get some people coming on and joining us. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second edition now of Campfire Chat. Another wonderful program by the Shireinu project of Congregation Shir Hamalot in Irvine. And this one is a little bit different than our normal music programs. We love to sing. We love to sing at SHM. Shir Hamalot means Song of Ascents. We love to sing. But this is more of a podcast style that you can see. So something you'll be listening to. And we are very, very grateful that Jewish musician, composer, producer, student cantor, or Erev cantor, just about. I'll call him Erev cantor because he's a cantor in my mind. Josh Goldberg is here with us. So how are you, Josh?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much. How are you?
Good. How are things up in LA?
Things are good. Things are good. It's been a good Hanukkah so far.
Yeah, that's good. And we just figured out that the Hanukkah nights have flown by, and we are now in the seventh night. And so, if you haven't lit your Hanukkot yet, I hope you will. Did you light yours yet, Josh?
Not tonight. I'll do that right after this.
Yeah, exactly. Us as well. So, we have a lot in store tonight. And we're just going to kind of be talking back and forth and learning a little bit about, what Josh does. Because Josh is really a unique talent in the Jewish music world, because he's not just a guy that picks up a guitar and sings or sits in front of a piano and just sings. Not only does he have depth in the understanding of prayer, liturgy, Torah, text, etc., etc., Josh has the unique ability to create music and other people's music from nothing. And I think that is a talent that I've been working with GarageBand and I haven't been able to really figure out too well. And just to have that type of creativity is really cool. So, Josh, if you would, tell us a little bit about, where you started, how you got your passion not only for music, but for Jewish music, as well, and then we can kind of take the conversation from there, shall we?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I grew up in Dallas, Texas at a big reform shul. And some of my earliest memories there were, performing in plays and spiels and talent shows from a young age. And of course, I had some great cantors there. My cantor Richard Cohn was an influence on me from a young age. Um, and I picked up I started with musical theater. That was my first sort of foray into music. I was never much of a dancer, but singing and acting and moving on stage and getting in character and sort of experiencing music through the life of a character was sort of my first experience. And then,
What was your favorite? What was the musical that got you going?
oh, I did so many, but I think my favorite was West Side Story, where I got to play Tony, which was really fun.
I like to be in America. Dun, 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 dun.
Exactly, which Debbie Friedman sort of copied in 1, 2, 3, 1, 2,
One, two,
3.
three, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's exactly right. I know. And then, of course, you got Maria, and I'm sure you sang that beautifully.
Yeah, so that was sort of my, or I think I developed my chops as a singer. And then around seventh or like first grade, I took up piano, but it was always, I studied with like sort of the typical classical piano stuff, and I was sort of into it, but not really. And then around like seventh grade, I took a guitar class at my school. They offered sort of a beginning guitar, and I, learned chords and realized, oh, wait, I can learn the chords and then I can play songs that I like from the radio and I can make up my own songs. And then after that, my parents literally could not pull me away from the piano and the guitar, and I was just playing all the time and started writing. And that's how I really realized like I liked acting and I liked portraying another character on stage, but I also had my own words and my own music to share. So started doing that. And then probably around when I started high school, I had a friend who was a song leader for Nifty, my friend Ben, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to come song lead at this, Nifty event?" And I was like, "What's song leading? Like, what does that mean?" And he's like, "Just bring your guitar. Like, it'll be fine. It'll be fun." I'm like, "All right, that sounds great."
La 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 la. Repeat after me. Here we go.
So before I knew it, I was like song leading at all my Nifty conventions, and I was like the RCVP and the song leader, and I was like, "Oh, this is really fun," and leading services, and got more involved at the temple. And then fast forward, went to Arts High School in Dallas, and then fast forward more, came to Los Angeles and went to USC to study in the popular music program.
So was that a culture shift for you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what was cool is that so many schools at the time, now it's more popular, but at the time when you were auditioning for college, it's like you either auditioned for musical theater, for opera, or for jazz.
Right.
And I liked musical theater, but that wasn't really what I wanted to do. Like I had sung opera a little bit before, and I had the chops for it, but that wasn't what I really wanted to do. And I could play a little bit of jazz, but I didn't want to be a jazz pianist. So none of those things exactly fit. But then when I heard about this program at USC, it was called Popular Music Performance, and you got to study songwriting with some of the greats and study how to produce and study how to perform with the band. And I was like, that sounds amazing. I want to do that. And I applied to USC and I got in, and I was like, all right, I guess I'm moving to California.
Wow.
And that was, the first phase, I guess, in my professional music journey.
And that became your top choice immediately, or were you looking at other schools at the time?
Oh no! I had gotten into other schools, and I was still applying for other schools. Then, as soon as somehow I auditioned for USC, and like a week later, I already got in. I was like, okay. I just dropped some. I had some other auditions, and I was like, nope, I'm going to USC.
Well, hey, those Trojans recognize talent when they see it, right? Wow, that's really cool. So, what does it actually mean to learn how to play with a band? I assume you're obviously not talking about the marching band. You're talking about a group, right?
Yeah, so we had our main, actually sort of the core of our curriculum was called pop performance. And so every week we would be sort of assigned, or every semester they'd assign us to a band. So it'd be, 5 or 6 people. You'd have drummer, bassist, guitarist, maybe a second guitarist, maybe a vocalist or two, and maybe like a violin or whatever other instrument was in the band. And every week they would say, okay, here's, two of these classic songs starting from the Beatles moving up sort of by the decade. So kind of covering the span of American popular music and other, not just American, but popular music in America from like 1950 through current times, and sort of learning the Great American Songbook by way of performing it with a band, and not just playing the songs, but really dissecting each instrument, each part, and getting the parts as close as we could to how it sounded on the record, and really learning, learning how each part goes and how each part connects with each other as a band, learning how to be a music director to direct the rest of the band, and getting feedback every week on how we could individually perform better and how we could all work together more as a band. And then each semester, our final would be basically putting on a rock and roll show. And my senior year, my final was to perform at the Troubadour in Los Angeles, which is
Wow, that's so cool. I mean, it's really fun, and I guess I can see how your abilities as a producer really can come into play through doing activities like that, and really almost I don't know what you would call, like, parsing out each recording and piece of music, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a musician, you kind of have to think like a producer. Whenever when you're playing an instrument, you have to think not just how does this part sound by itself, but how does it fit in with everything else that's going on. And so I think by virtue of doing that as a musician, then sort of when I came around to it on the other end as a producer, I was like, oh, this all sort of makes sense now.
Who was so performing through that Great American Songbook? Who really got you? Who was your main inspiration? I know you, based on our SHM Sunday Song Session, gospel. Man, that's kind of definitely a thing there. So I'm sure you love Elvis, but
Yeah, gospel, Motown was really. I love all the Motown stuff. From Stevie Wonder to the Temptations, and one of our instructors actually was Lamont Dozier, who there was a songwriting trio called Holland Dozier Holland, who they basically cranked out every thousands of Motown songs
amazing.
back in the day, and just that, and you have like those musicians, like they called themselves the Funk Brothers, and there was sort of this band that just played on thousands of records, and just these iconic parts that I think we're still trying to emulate that today, and that level of craftsmanship and songwriting and level of musicianship. So
Yeah, yeah. Josh, take us kind of on the journey to Jewish music. You're composing secular music. You're learning a lot about secular music. Jewish music, in the 1990s, early 2000s, kind of took this shift into sounding more and more like things we would hear on the radio or iPod at the time, et cetera, et cetera. So tell us about that shift. How'd you get there?
yeah, so I'd always sort of done music, and I had always done music with the temple, but I never really thought about the idea that you could have a career in Jewish music until later. While I was in college, my first real job was being a song leader on, Sunday mornings at Temple Judea in LA, in Tarzana. And, that was something I did on the weekends while I wasn't in school. And then I actually attended my first song leader boot camp and met Rick Recht. And at that time it was like 40 people. Now it's grown to like 400
I
people.
know. It's just exploded. And I've never been myself. I really want to go.
Yeah, I should definitely check it out. But so the first song leader boot camp, I met Rick Recht and connected with him. And then the next summer, I think I was a freshman, or I was finishing my freshman year, and he said, "Hey, I'm going on tour this summer. We're gonna hit all these different summer camps across the country. Do you want to sort of be my opening act and my keyboard player?" And I was like, yeah, awesome." And so that was my first exposure to really what a career in Jewish music could look like. And of course, Rick was really a pioneer in the the first one to really bring a rock band on tour for a summer camp concert. So that was
Yeah.
pretty special to see how he made all that happen.
And it was awesome when it happened.
Oh yeah, I mean he brought the lights and the fog machines
I
and the
know.
drums and the bass, and like he brought his entire sound system, and like we really gave the kids a full concert. And I think people really connected with it, and everyone knew all his lyrics, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. And to see the impact he was having.
Yeah.
And fast forward, I stayed in touch with Rick, and I was still song leading, but still also just studying popular music in school. And then after school, I graduated, and I was like, okay, what am I gonna do now? And
Like we all do.
exactly. And I sort of went through this like, okay, I'm gonna be a musician. Here we go. And then I was like, okay, what do I do now? And I ended up in that first year out of college writing a full album of Jewish songs. I wrote like 13 songs that were liturgical or semi-liturgical, and put that out in 2016. And that was, I'd written like one Jewish song, which is what I sort of toured with Rick Recht, was this Yehiyu that I wrote. But then that time I was like, okay, I'm gonna really try this and write a whole album.
How does that one go again? Can you?
The Yehiyu Lerat song. Yeah, that was the first one I ever wrote. But yeah, so I put out this album, and it was like, okay, now I guess I'm gonna really go for this Jewish. I'd done Jewish music as a musician, as a song leader, as a sort of sideman for Rick Recht and eventually Craig Taubman and Mikey Pauker. And but after college, I was like, okay, I'm gonna really try to be, put out my own music, and did that, and was sort of hoping that would launch me as a songwriter, which I think it did. And also, it's sort of because I co-produced that with my engineer. After that, I had some people come up to me and say, hey, I really liked your album, how that sounded. Do you think you could help me with my album? And, I'd never intended to set out as a producer, but sort of sometimes you can only connect the dots looking backwards and not forwards.
Right. So when you wrote, so I mean, I remember when I started off writing music, it was, okay, I know one Shalom Rav.
Right.
I'm going to write another Shalom Rav, just to give that Shalom Rav a run for its money.
Yeah.
Very clearly, nothing could ever give Craig Taubman's Shalom Rav, or not Craig Taubman's, Jeff Klepper's, Shalom Rav a run for its money. But like, how did you choose your liturgy out of your first album? What did you want to write? How did you write it? And how did you think, globally with that?
Yeah, I mean, for my first album, I mostly just took a Friday night service and sort of identified the main liturgical pieces in a Friday night service. And actually the album's sort of in order. It's not every single piece of liturgy, but starting with Baruch Hu, then Shema Ve'Hafta Michamocha, all the way through Mourner's Kaddish. I had a melody for Mourner's Kaddish at the end,
Right?
Daniel Leon's. So in that way I sort of structured it like a service. Then there were also a few other songs that weren't from the Siddur, but were just songs that were part of my story and that I had written, and I kind of weave those all together, because to me they were all authentic to me and part of my story.
And you produced that?
Yeah, so I would say I co-produced it. I had an amazing engineer who I named Sam Bronner, who I went to his studio. But he was a fantastic engineer and had a great studio, and but he had never recorded Jewish music, so he like didn't really understand necessarily like what my intention was for each song. So it ended up being that I sort of directed, to be a producer in a sense, it's kind of like being a movie director. It's sort of like you cast all the actors, in this case musicians, you create the script, which in this case is the songs and the arrangements, and you sort of direct the musicians to bring out the performances that you want. And so that was sort of a my first real experience producing an entire. I had done like an EP, but this was my first 13 song full album, and we had a big cast of musicians and had a string quartet and horns and 8 singers, and like it was a big production.
So take us through that for a second. I think this is a really unique opportunity for lay people, including myself, really to hear about the process of that. So you sit in your living room or at a camp or a nifty event or dorm room or wherever, right? You come up with these songs. You've made meaning. Walk us through the initial steps of you've walked into the studio. How are you going to produce this? How do you turn it into a masterpiece?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it comes in the preparation, which we call the pre-production. So, once you have a song, it's sort of breaking down the song, writing it out onto a chart or a piece of sheet music, so you can identify all the chords, all the rhythms, how many beats and how many measures every part of the song is. And usually we start by doing like demo tracks or rough tracks, sort of getting everything in the tempo to a click track, so everything's sort of lined up on the grid, as we say. And oftentimes, we'll lay down a guitar, lay down a vocal, and that'll be sort of the basis. And then, we add in the drums, add in the bass, add in strings, add in keyboards, and over time it all sort of just congeals together. But it does take a lot of preparation and arranging and figuring out, first of all, figuring out what instruments you want, whether sometimes I end up playing them myself, or sometimes if it's an instrument I don't play, then I'll have to think, okay, who do I want to get? And I think there's an art in picking, it's easy to just say, oh, well, my buddy Jeff plays bass, so let's get bass, let's get him, which is fine. But, depending on the project, depending on the song, you might want to find a particular musician that that specializes in that genre or in that, anything. So I think luckily through USC and all those connections, I had a lot of sort of musicians in my Rolodex that I could just be like, oh, I need a pedal steel. Oh, well, I know a great pedal steel player. Oh, I need a violin, or I need a string quartet. And so knowing who to call on for those different things was important as well.
So yeah, it's so fascinating. So you've laid down the click. You get everything in grid. You choose your musicians. And are you you give them a chart, yes, but are you trusting them and their artistic ability to kind of help your track flourish? Is that how it works?
Yeah. So I think as a producer, there's sort of an art in knowing how much information to give your musicians and how much to let them figure out on their own and to add their own artistry. For example, like if I'm having a bass player, like typically if it's a pop song, I give them the chart with the chord changes. I'll, give them an indication of what the genre is, any rhythmic elements that they need to follow. But other than that, I'm not going to usually write out every single note for them to play, because they've played these kind of songs 1,000 times. Once they hear the track and once they see the chart, they're going to know exactly what to do. And in some cases, some bass players I play with, literally, they've never heard the song before. They've never seen the music before. They sit down and the first shot, they get it exactly right, which is amazing.
But so jumping off that point, though, many of these musicians have played on dozens, if not hundreds, of tracks. Producers sometimes have a certain sound. How does your bass player, let's say we use the same bass player and the same exact producer, how do I know that Josh Goldberg's is going to sound different than Brian Zive's in that moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the producer's job to make sure that the musician is playing the song in the way that they think suits the song. And part of that is the preparation, making the arrangements, making the charts, making sure everything in the track is in place so that when they add their part, it fits in perfectly with everyone else. And sometimes part of it is just the magic of that day, that that time coming in and feeling, making sure everyone's in the right headspace and understands the meaning behind the song, or at least the essence of the song, so they can, even if, one of my teachers always said, even your musicians, even if they're not singing, they should know all the words to your song, because they should understand, they should understand the essence of the song and how their part contributes to the overall meaning and kavanah, in this case, of the song. So I think that sort of vibe and sort of the magic is part of it also.
Is there a particular song that you wrote from the earlier years that really just got that essence, that hit that ikar of who you are and what you wanted to be? And if so, would you mind playing it for us?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the most sung songs of mine from that record, sung by other people around the country, I think, is my Ve'ahavta, which I wrote with Rabbi Josh Warshawski, who probably a lot of people watching tonight know, who know him. And so I wrote this song with him, and I wanted to write something that captured the essence of the Ve'ahavta, which is all about how we show our love for God. But and meeting a lot of kids in religious school, sometimes we would chant the Ve'ahavta and they would get all the words and the trope perfectly, but then I would say, so what does this mean? And they say, I don't know.
No clue. But good job, you knew how an etnachta.
Right. So that's important. The kava is important, but also we have to get the kavanah. So I wanted to write something in English that anyone could understand, and also had this part that's antiphonal, which means call and response. Mm-hmm. So that sometimes can be an effective tool in songwriting, especially for liturgical music, when you really want to involve the congregation. If you have something that they can easily, either it's so repetitive that they can catch on, or if it's literally a call and response type of melody, that can be really effective. So I wrote this with Josh. He helps me. I like to take the Hebrew and take the translation, but then sort of sometimes elevate it or customize it a little bit. So it's not just a word for word, from Mishkan Tefillah, but also with a little bit of, added personal touch. So this is the Ve'ahavta that we wrote. And I'll let you guys sing the response from home. And you shall love Adonai, Adonai, with all your soul, and all your might. And teach these words day and night to all your children, for it's their right. And wear them proudly as a sign upon your head, and as a crown above your eyes. And you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates throughout all time. So that was Ve'ahavta. Now, I think a lot of people in BBYO are singing that, and in a lot of synagogues. So you never know where a song, once you write it, I think a song, it's no longer yours. It goes out into the world, and you send it on its way, pack its bag, send it on its way, and you hope that it'll find a home somewhere else. And I don't
like our children.
One has. Yeah, exactly.
I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but I'm so interested in taking a scratch track and turning it into a major production. So you just sang that song. Do you happen to have that song recorded?
The Ve'ahavta?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have it recorded. I don't think I actually have the Pro Tools track with me right now.
Oh, I don't know if you had. I mean, so it's not easy just to pull it up to play it and share it with us?
Oh, I can play the recording, yeah.
Yeah, we'd love to hear the recording. I think that would... So you just heard Josh share that, and really beautiful in the antiphonal way, and that's a word that clergy love, because it makes us sound really smart, but it really it just means back and forth, repeat after me type thing. But I think it's a real treat to hear that what we would call the scratch track, and the scratch track is the track that just has guitar and singing, and sometimes that's great acoustically. But now you're really going to get to hear how it developed into an actual recording. So, Josh,
Yeah, can you see this screen right here?
I do, I see it.
Yeah, so this, like I said, I wrote it with Josh Warshawski, and pretty much had all the music, and he helps me take the words from Mishkan Tefillah and put them into sort of my own vernacular. And then I ended up getting Craig Taubman to sing the duet with me, to sing that call and response.
Oh, cool.
And, we added, you'll hear in the intro, we added these lots of sort of washed out electric guitars, lots of delays on them to make it sort of create this ethereal sound. So, anyway.
Josh, it actually seems like it's frozen on screen.
Sorry, what?
It looks like it's frozen on screen.
Oh, let's try it again. Let's see. Yeah, so you also kind of got a view of what it looks like in a studio, and
Yeah.
a glimpse of how it all comes together.
What a treat, and it is really beautiful to see how it all came together. And it's funny. I think, and I've mentioned this before in another program at some point. I think of there was a Grammys performance a long time ago. I mean, maybe 8-9 years ago, something like that, where Sarah Bareilles was doing a dueling pianos gig with Carole King.
Oh, wow.
And you could just see that they're singing "You've Got a Friend," and it was really cool. And then all of a sudden they start singing "Fight Song," which is one of Sarah's first like big hit songs.
Uh-huh.
And you could just see in her eyes, man, like, this is not happening. This is the coolest thing. And so I'm thinking about this video, like, you're standing with Craig Taubman, and we all know them, and we're friends, and they're great, and they're down-to-earth people. And that's Craig Taubman. And he's singing your song.
Yeah, it was definitely very special.
How are you not... I mean, were you freaking out inside?
No, I don't think so.
I would have been.
At that point, I had already traveled around the world with him, touring with him, so I was very used to playing with him. But obviously, when it's my song and it's him singing on my song, it's a little different. So it was definitely very special.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, maybe I blew that out of proportion just a little bit. And
It was very exciting, and I was really glad that he was willing to lend his voice to that song.
yeah, that is super, super cool. So, Josh, tell us a little in this production world now. You are the creator, owner, major person for Kosher Style Records. And I love that name, by the way, because it's really true. And I remember when you were first kind of getting started with it, we were actually sitting at Biennial together, right?
Oh,
I
yeah.
think it was in, Boston?
Yes,
I think it was in Boston, yeah, and you were telling me all about it and some of the artists you've started to work with, and I mean, just what a cool thing. Tell us about Kosher Style Records, how it started, who you're working with, how it's grown.
Yeah, well, so like I said, it sort of all grew out of that one album that I created. And then Charlie Kramer was the first person to hit me up and say, hey, can you, I'm working on an album, and I know he's played the songs for me, and eventually he was like, do you want to help me record this and produce it? And I said, yeah, I would love to. So we did Charlie's album, and then shortly after, I did Ellie Flyer's first album. It was a lot of first albums, which is really exciting because I felt like I was sort of helping these people get their wings as Jewish artists. So we did Charlie's first album, did Ellie Flyer's first Jewish album, Lucy Greenbaum's first Jewish album, Andrew Goldstein from Dallas.
We love Lucy, by the way, at our.
Everyone loves Lucy.
I mean, absolutely, no pun intended. But she's been with our congregation now twice, and she's amazing.
It's amazing, and what was really cool is that from those first couple albums, like the next year, like 3 of them got onto a Ruach CD. Lucy, Ellie, and Andrew all got on Ruach, which, for a 10-song album to have 3 songs that I produced get on there was like really exciting. And actually this year, I haven't announced it yet, but I actually had 5 songs that I produced.
Oh man, that's so cool. Congratulations. I mean, but is that a coincidence, in their selection committee? I mean, yes, you're good at what you do, but I remember producing some music that was okay. Like, the very beginning stages were not spectacular from a production standpoint. And then my first big album, It's No Dream, was produced by Josh Nelson. Everybody knows Josh Nelson. All of a sudden, boom, Rockin' Redeemer gets on a Ruach CD, right? And so is there something to having that named production?
I don't think so for Ruach because they have a blind committee, so they don't know the names of the artists, they don't know who produced anything when they listen. But I mean, I think they're listening for that sound. They want that sort of radio friendly, big sounding, catchy sounding, something that everyone wants to blast in their car or on their headphones. And so hopefully it seems like I've found that sound that they're looking for. So, but I don't think it was a name thing at all.
Okay, well, maybe you're being modest, maybe you're not.
I don't
know. But how has your production style with Kosher Style Records really developed from maybe those first productions to where it might be now?
Sure. A lot of producers sort of come at it from different angles. I sort of came at it as like an artist turned producer, but there's some people who start out as like DJs who eventually get into, remixing, and then they start making their own beats, and then they start working with rappers or with hip hop or those kind of artists. And other people come at it as engineers who are specifically working on the Pro Tools side and setting up the microphones and recording, and then eventually they're recording so many artists that eventually the artists just start asking them for their feedback on the music. But I came at it more from an artist perspective, as someone who is already an artist and a songwriter and performer, and sort of that's how I started. And then eventually I think my other skills caught up with that side, the technical skills. So the first couple of records, I wasn't even touching the computer. It was someone else engineering the entire thing. But now, as more time has gone on, and I've gotten more comfortable with the technology side, like I'm very involved in the technical side and recording, a lot of the parts and editing and tuning and quantizing and engineering. And so I've definitely gotten a lot more involved on the technical side, and sometimes mixing. That's sort of mixing and mastering to me is like the final frontier, which in a record traditionally you have different personnel for. You have the artist, you have the producer, you have the studio musicians, you have the mix engineer, which is the person who sort of takes all the different elements, all the different instruments once they're already recorded, and mix them together to blend them perfectly. And then you have the mastering engineer, which is sort of like the icing on the cake. Once all the instruments are mixed, sort of put that final sheen over the whole thing. And so now I am gradually starting to do my own mixes, and maybe eventually I'll do my own mastering. But, I think the way I've been lucky enough to learn is just by working with amazing people. And, when I hire someone to mix a record that I produced, I'll sit there and watch them and say, what did you do? What did you just do there? Oh, you added this kind of reverb? Oh, you added a slapback delay? Oh, you added a chamber reverb? Oh, you added a plate? Like, I just want to learn everything. And every time I I produce and sometimes get to work with other producers or other engineers or other artists. Like I'm just always trying to learn every single day, and I think just as you go, you pick up things, and hopefully every day you get a little bit better.
Putting tools in your toolbox. It's exactly how it works.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask a question that may be pushing a boundary, but we'll see. Of your collection, what do you think is your best song that you've produced? I mean just like something where you were like, I can't believe I just created this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's a good question. I think I tend to be most excited about what I've just done because sometimes
Sure.
I'm sure I've experienced this too. Like you write a song and then, like a year later the album comes out and then like 2 years later you're like still promoting that song, but you're in your mind you've already moved on
Yeah,
to the
right.
thing. So like I'm always thinking about the next thing. And of course, I I hope that my songs will all have a long life, but like I'm always trying to think about the next thing. So to answer your question, I have no idea.
Well, that was a very politically correct answer. I mean, I knew it was pushing a boundary. I wanted to see if maybe I could get something, or so maybe not favorite or best, but is there one that you were like particularly impressed with? And you're a pretty humble guy, so I mean, I don't know if that's the right language to use.
Yeah, I mean, I trying to think. I think on my new album, Anchors and Balloons, I worked with even when you're a producer, sometimes you need to work with another producer to help you so that you can wear your artist hat and you can focus on the performance and have someone else help you with the tech side, which I strongly believe that. And so on this last album, I worked with this producer named Ross, and so having him add his touch to it and then hearing the final result was really cool. And I think my I had a song called "The Day That Turned My World Around" on my new album, and it was a song I wrote for. It wasn't liturgical per se at all, but it was a song actually I wrote about 10 years ago. I had a friend who tragically passed away when it was her freshman year of college, and she passed away suddenly and tragically. And I wrote this song back then, and then like 10 years later, I was working on this album, and I finished it. I had the verse, I had the chorus, both choruses, both verses, and then 10 years later, I wrote the bridge, and then I was like, I need to record this song. And just once we added these strings and added all these different touches, and I had actually this drummer named MB Gordy, who's this Grammy Award-winning drummer who plays with Josh Groban, and like just after we added all this stuff, I was like, wow, that's pretty special. And I think the fact that it came from that emotional place, and so like that, it had a special place in my heart, and I think that came through hopefully on the recording. So that was definitely one of the more special and personal. And I think sometimes it's scary to, when you're a songwriter, you're literally bearing your soul every time
Yeah.
you put your lyrics out there, and it can be scary, especially going to school for music. You sometimes can get a little self-conscious because a lot of our classes, like songwriting classes, you share your song with a room full of songwriters, and then you wait and you get critiqued by all of them, and they
Right.
sometimes tear you apart and say, well, it was good, but you need to fix this and this and this. So by the time you actually put out a song, like, it can be scary because you never know what people are going to think or what they're going to say. But I think the key is just be as authentic as possible, and always hold yourself to your highest standard, and hope that comes through and that comes across.
Josh, you may not think you are, but you're a big deal. And, you know, so many people know you. So many people love your music. I am a huge fan. I know, in within the Shireinu project, we sing some of your songs. We we
Oh, that's
we
awesome.
love your music, and when I think of somebody who's a big deal, I think of wow, they're able to do things that are truly extraordinary. Like, I don't know, create a music video, you know? And you've created some music videos. I mean, like, totally stuff that I would never expect a Jewish musician necessarily to put out. And I was wondering if you might want to share. You've mentioned your new album, so pitch it, let us hear it, and I would love to see if you might want to share one of your music videos with us.
Sure, I would love to. You know, back in the days of MTV, as soon as I think Thriller by Michael Jackson was one of the first music videos that really changed the game, and all of a sudden, like the video is almost just as much of a thing as the song was, and it's like, I think the video is another way for an artist to express their creativity and bring out the meaning of a song, and so, you know, I was always interested in combining media and trying to make videos that were visually interesting. And it was like, every pop songwriter out in the world is putting out music videos, so why shouldn't Jewish songwriters put out music videos and make them look cool? So
Yeah.
this is actually a single. It came out after my last full album, but it's a single that came out just in time for Hanukkah, and it's called "That's What Makes It a Miracle." And we did this video. We was shot by directed by a director named Andres Casanova, and we shot it at a couple different locations in downtown LA. And yeah, I'll give you guys a little peek of it. Oh, let me make sure my sound is sharing. Yes. Oh, no. Oh, hold on.
Wow.
Well, that's the new single.
Very cool.
Yep.
Very, very cool. Now, I mean, I could act more surprised I've seen it, but I mean, really, for those of you who haven't seen it, isn't Josh a talent? I mean, just so wonderful, and thank you for sharing that with us. Really,
My pleasure.
wow, that's awesome, Josh. We're gonna be wrapping up pretty soon, and you've given us a beautiful walk through your life and through the life of a producer and what comes into that. And we did have a few questions on Facebook
Wonderful.
that I'm happy to. This is a good one from Susan. Susan asks, Josh, have you ever thought about becoming a cantor?
Have I ever? Yes.
Oh my gosh!
Been thinking about it really hard for the last 4 years while I complete cantorial school. So yes,
Where are you at cantorial school, Josh?
I'm at the Academy for Jewish Religion of California
Wonderful. You're studying with Nate Lamb.
with Cantor Lamb, with Cantor Perrine Inker, Cantor Jonathan Friedman, Cantor Don Gurney, Jay Freilich. Yeah, a lot of great.
Yeah, they're wonderful. And folks, in February, we're lucky enough. Cantor Nathan Lamb, like the Chazan of all Chazans, is going to be joining us and teaching an adult music experience class and
Awesome.
with me. And I am just like, he's my cantor. So I mean, this is really, really, we're really excited about that. So
Sick.
um, what's exciting for you about becoming a cantor as opposed to just being a producer, song leader, which is amazing also.
Absolutely. To me, sometimes people are like, well, you're doing so many of these different things like songwriting and producing and cantoring. But to me, that's all part of sort of one unified vision of Jewish leadership. And I think having having a pulpit and having a community is so important. And I think for me, the whole point of Jewish music is to build community. And I think, just in my 6 or 7 months working at Stephen Wise this year as their cantorial intern, even during a pandemic, just the ways that we've been able to create meaning for people and create community is really amazing. And to me, that's what it's all about. And so going to cantorial school and sort of getting to that next level of Jewish scholarship is my hope that I will be able to have a deeper and wider impact on people and to make those personal connections and to help other people find meaning in our liturgy and in our tradition, in our religion, and to hopefully, just like my cantors did for me in the past, bring new people into the fold and show them the beauty of Judaism and to bring inspiration, to uplift, to educate. To me, all of that is the job of a songwriter, of a song leader, of a producer, and of a clergyman
Yeah.
or a woman. So
It's a true privilege to be a rabbi and a cantor. There's no question about it. I mean, it is dedicating our lives, and there's really nothing better. Another really nice question that we just got from Mara is: do you ever get emotional when you're writing your music?
definitely, definitely, I think you have to. To me, the emotion, I've heard some people say that your audience might not remember every single lyric or every single note, but they'll remember how the song made them feel. And hopefully, eventually, they will learn all the lyrics too. But initially, when they hear the song for the first time, they're going to remember how that song makes them feel. And so when I'm writing, I try to really get in touch with that emotion, whether if it's a text that already exists as a liturgy. I try to think, how does that text apply to my life personally? What does that make me feel? And when I was in college, I was privileged to study with Melissa Manchester, who is a amazing singer-songwriter, one of the biggest songwriters of the 80s and 90s. And oftentimes we would when I was, sharing a song with her, she taught the art of stage performance. And we would take a song and she would actually make me break it down like a monologue and speak the entire song. And basically, even if it wasn't a theater song, it was a pop song or a Beatles song or a song that I wrote, but to make me speak every word of it and act it out as if I was, giving that as a monologue or as a dialogue with another person, and think about how does every line, what are you feeling in that moment? And that really taught me that every word you sing, whether it's in Hebrew or English, you have to be connecting with that emotion and conveying that to your audience, that they can, so it'll have an emotional impact on them. So the answer is yes, absolutely.
She loves you. Yeah. Right? I mean, it's a good exercise when you think about it, right? We all live in a yellow submarine. We do the same thing when writing sermons. It's nobody is gonna remember whether or not we fumbled a couple of words of the Amidah here and there, but you know what they will remember? They'll remember that one line. They'll remember how they felt when they heard that sermon. I've really taken that to heart. It's beautiful stuff. Well, Josh, we are almost out of time. This has been a true privilege, and you're going to be back with us teaching a 4-part class in the spring trimester, I believe.
Yes.
Of the SHM Music Academy called Songwriting Sessions. And
super excited.
It's going to be great.
Music and learn how to write your own songs. So that'll be really exciting.
It's going to be really great. We're so looking forward to that and grateful that you've joined us tonight, as has become our minchag with our custom with the Campfire chats here with the Shireinu project. Just like at camp, we're going to end the night with Siyum, with a little litany of Shema and Hashkivenu, a prayer for shelter and peace. And Josh and I are going to lead us in that. So get cuddly, enjoy it, and we're going to do it in D. How's that sound?
Perfect.
Yeah? Okay. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam, Leolam Vaem.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'shalom, L'shalom. Ve'ha'amidenu Shomrenu L'chaim. Ufros aleinu Sukat Shlomecha, Ufros aleinu Sukat Shlomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight to our Campfire chat on Sunday, the final SHM Sunday song session of 2020. Yes, 2020 is ending, thank goodness. It will be me on Sunday at 4 o'clock Pacific doing Nifty's Best. We're just going to be singing camp songs, open up the chord stir, and have a good time. So we will see you at 4 o'clock. Josh, thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Rabbi. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, and we will be sure to catch up real soon. And until then, everybody, keep singing and have a wonderful night. Josh, hold on one second.